Guild Wars, Sea of Sorrows. Chapter 21. Now the darkness comes, and the stars above circle round like sharks at sea. Instead of fighting for our lives, we should be sitting at our ease. But I chose the strife of a sailor's life. And the ocean, she chose me. Weather the storm. The brutality was moored at the southernmost dock, sitting low in her berth like a shark prowling still waters. Her shape, long and lean, reminded Kabaya of the havoc, but no engine chugged in this brig's lower decks. She had 2 masts standing fore and aft rather than parallel, and her sails were square-rigged in the way of Shar military vessels. Her hull was painted a dark charcoal gray, like raw primer left to dry. Ziri's Grimjaw and his warband bragged that it made her harder to see against the ocean. Sycox claimed it was a tribute to their legion ash. The ship had 2 decks, with a thick hull designed to ram. She could take plenty of damage and still remain afloat. But that didn't leave the brutality with much space to carry freight. As with most char vessels, it was lightly crewed, and only 2 warbands, the Grim Warband and another called the Zeal Warband, kept her running on long journeys up and down the coast. Those 2 warbands comprised 15 sailors between them, plus 3 more that Sycox and Fashur snidely referred to as honorless gladium, because they didn't have a warband. Kobaya understood what that meant. Most humans didn't. The Char were also in the habit of maintaining a guard on their wharf. Day and night, at least 2 armed soldiers stood watch at the beach end of the pier. The brutality had few visitors. Char ships were relatively rare, as the Great Cats weren't a particularly seagoing people, and other races didn't tend to make social calls on Grimjaw's men. Kobaya stood in an alley across from the dock, rubbing his hand against his cheek as he contemplated the brutality. "What are you thinking?" Issei whispered, pressing back against the wall. Matcha interrupted. "Tell me it's not the ear thing. Even if you could lift a char, Kobe, you just don't have hands enough for all 4 of their ears." "Please tell me," Kobaya clapped a hand over the excited Asura's mouth before her chattering could attract attention. The sun was up over Lion's Arch, and the streets were filling with people going about their morning chores. Shops were opening, fishermen were gathering their nets and heading out on the tide, and the Char were changing guard on their pier. "Hush," Kobaya hissed. Sullenly, Matcha nodded, and he let her go. "Force won't work. We have to use guile," said Issei. "Matcha, can you make us look like Char?" The Asura nodded, braids bouncing. "Sure, but it lasts only about 5 minutes. We wouldn't even make it to the end of the dock." Kobaya cursed and struggled to think of another way. "I've got an idea," said Issei. "Give me a few minutes and then head for the ship. You'll know when to move." She smiled, glancing down the street with sudden enthusiasm. "What are you going to do?" Matcha snorted. "Sex it up to distract them?" Issei glared at the little mesmer. "By the 6 gods. These are Char, not wharf rats. Get your mind out of the gutter." She poked her head around the corner and took another look at the dock. "I'm going to give them the one thing no Char can resist. When that happens, you get in the water, slip up the anchor chain, and see if you can find anything that tells us whether Grimjaw made that bomb. I'll meet you at the Captain's Council later. And, by the way," Issei added, "I'd recommend you cover your faces in case you find yourself creeping into their sleeping area." "So they won't recognize us?" Kobaya asked. "No," Issei winked, slipping around the corner, "so you don't get knocked unconscious by the smell." She blended into the crowd easily, striding toward the wharf. As she approached the wharf, she singled out in the crowd someone along the way, raising her hand to catch the man's attention. "What's she doing?" Matcha tugged on his sleeve. "No time. Whatever that crazy Issei is doing, it won't distract the Char for very long, so we'd better be in the water before she gets rolling." The 2 edged through the crowd to the harbor. The brutality was on a shared wharf, and 3 pot-bellied Asaran schooners were also docked down its length. Macha waved to one, passing the time as if nothing of importance was happening, while Kobaya kept a watchful eye on the brutality's guards. Contemplating what Aize could be doing, Kobaya leaned over the railing of the pier. He looked at the ocean churning far below, frothing in shades of white and gray against a cold, sandy beach. The wood of the railing was hard and cool, thick enough to walk on. "Did you really see a mermaid, Kobaya? A really real one? Kobaya? Are you all right?" Several moments had passed while he stood in fugue. Masha waited at his elbow, her black eyes wide with concern. "It's time to go. Aize and Henst are making a distraction." "Henst?" Kobaya shook himself and raised his head. The 2 char at the end of the wharf were slouching, weary from a long night's watch. Their hands rested on the hilts of their weapons, and their conversation was kept low. Kobaya could see Aize and Henst sauntering past the pier, talking a little too loudly. Although he couldn't catch the words, Kobaya could hear their tones snarky, taunting, and cruel. "By Balthazar," Kobaya said, faltering. "She's provoking them. Using Henst as bait? Oh, that's genius. Imagine if old Grist was here to see this. He'd have joined in faster than you can say, Legerdemain." Macha eyed the fight with pure joy. "Aize's right, though. If there's one thing those char can't resist, it's battle. Better still if it's an opportunity to get their claws on Ol Mister. I'm the Prince of Ascalon." Macha jumped up, grabbing the rail and pulling herself up to stand on it. "Shrewd. I would never have guessed that human woman had the brains to come up with a plan like that. It's positively Asaran." "Who knew? Let me get up here, and I can get a better look." Instinctively, Kobaya grabbed Macha around the waist and swung her down. His reaction was swift and violent. "What the blue blazes are you doing?" "That's dangerous. You could slip." "Cogs wallop!" Macha yelped, shoving him away. "Colby, ow, that hurt." "What's your malfunction? I was just trying to see what they're doing." Wincing, she grabbed her side where Kobaya's arm had slung her. "You can see just fine from down here." Now that the adrenaline rush was passing, Kobaya felt vaguely sick to his stomach. Images passed before his eyes, a tiny black shoe with a rusty silver buckle beneath an old green blanket. A crowd of faces on the beach. His mother's curses. Kobaya stifled the thoughts, trying to calm down. Macha stared at him furiously. Awkwardly, he added, "I'm sorry if I hurt you. I was just trying to keep you safe." The Asura's demeanor softened. "I'm fine." Macha might have added something else, but she never had the chance. A roar on the chardock grabbed their attention. As they watched, Henst slammed the butt of a boathook into a char's belly. The second one charged the black-haired human, but Aize hefted a huge coil of heavy rope at him. The wrist-thick strands of the coil, bundled together, slammed into the back of the second char's knees. He buckled, toppling forward with a yelp of pain. Whatever Aize and Henst had said to the char, it had apparently worked. They were certainly distracted. "Now, Colby," Macha insisted. "We have to go now." She grabbed the rungs of a ladder that led down to the beach, but Kobaya stopped her. "There's still a guard. Look there, on the ship." He pointed, and they could see a gruff-looking char standing on the deck of the Brutality, watching the fight on the dock, but not moving. "I need you to cover me with an illusion, so he doesn't see me swimming out to the ship." "But, Colby, I was going to go with you." "No time. You can't cast that spell and swim, can you?" When Macha shook her head despondently, Kobaya grabbed the ladder. "I need you here. Cast your spell and then keep an eye out. After I'm on board, head for the drunk tank. Aize and Henst are going to need you to bail them out of jail." He shot her a smile. Jumping onto the dock ladder, Kobaya climbed down, speeding along its length with the nimbleness of a moss spider. He pushed off the end of the ladder into the ocean, where the water was crisp and frigid, filled with the deep chill of the past night. He gasped as he sank into it. Melandru's waggling arse. "That's cold." "Shh. Swim quietly." On the dock above, Matcha began casting. Kobaya looked down and saw his hands, his arms, his entire body turning the same color as the sea. He paused to give Matcha a thumbs up, then realized she probably couldn't see it. As Kobaya swam toward the ship, he could hear Isaye and Henst brawling with the two char at the end of the dock. A crowd had gathered around them, taunting them and cheering on the fight. Henst had broken his boat hook in half and was pummeling one of the char with a stick in each hand, while Isaye clapped the second guard over the head with the lid of a trash bin. Her opponent fell to the ground in a stupor, while his companion, momentarily escaping from Henst, tackled Isaye and bore her to the ground. Nobody was paying any attention to the docks or the brutality. Kobaya wrapped his arms around the anchor chain and pulled himself up out of the water. By Grenth. He hung there, shivering. "I think it's colder outside the water." Looping his arm through each chain link in turn, Kobaya pulled himself up toward the brutality. By the time he reached the ship's hull, his clothing had begun to dry, and the coloring that made him near invisible was fading. The fight on the docks had started to peter out as well. He could hear the Lion Guard breaking things up on the pier, and the char replacements for wharf guard duty were taking their places. Isaye, Henst, and the two night guards were clapped in handcuffs and dragged off to the town jail. Matcha stood on the dock, watching him with dismay. Unable to soothe her worries, Kobaya pulled himself through a nearby porthole, rolling forward in an effort to be silent. As he landed inside, she'd just have to trust that he'd be safe. The darkness of the brutality's cargo hold seemed impenetrable after the bright light of morning. Kobaya tried to see, but the room was little more than a dark blur after the brilliance of the morning sun. Sparkles of dust danced through the porthole window, glittering on the puddles of water around his feet. Kneeling behind a crate, he took a moment to let his eyes adjust, trying to pick out the details of the various boxes and kegs stacked within the brutality's hold. As Kobaya's eyes finally adjusted to the gloom, he could see that many of the crates in the hold were marked with warnings: no fire, no impact, be careful around heat, and so forth. Near the stairs to the upper deck stood a workbench covered with tools. Kobaya edged his way toward it, glancing up at the sealed hatch in the ceiling, above the narrow staircase. Once there, Kobaya ran his hands over the implements curiously. Kobaya studied the tools, trying to find something incriminating among the screwdrivers, pliers, clamps, and other things. Some of the devices looked like those he'd seen in Sikox's toolbox, while others were completely foreign. He picked up one of the rods and twisted the handle, watching the tip rotate with a metallic buzzing sound. Ooh, interesting. The hatch above creaked open with a sudden slam, and heavy boot steps pounded on the stairs into the hold. Thinking quickly, Kobaya ducked beneath the workbench. Realizing he was still holding the strange tool, he shoved it into his pocket with a silently mouthed curse. The sunlight had half blinded him when he first came into the hold. Maybe he'd get lucky and the char would be similarly impaired, or just not notice it was missing. Voices bellowed from above as two char made their way down into the hold. A fight? By the lost claw of the Khan-ur. Can't I trust those Zeal warband morons with the simplest tasks? The voice belonged to Grimjaw, and he was complaining broadly as he stormed down the stairs. His first mate, a burly char with a spiked orange mane, carried a lantern as he followed Grimjaw into the hold. Every single time I ask them to take duty, they end up in a brawl. What did you expect? The first mate shrugged. Their blood legion. You knew that when you signed them aboard. Yeah, I knew it. But I figured they'd at least need to take breaths between fights. This has been a non-stop problem, Croker. They're a complete waste of good munitions. We should have hired crew from our own legion, Ash. Grimjaw walked among the crates in the hold, but the first mate paused at the bottom of the stairs. Then we'd be on task for silent sailing. Couldn't find him, Croker said. Blood was all the fort had to offer. He watched as Grimjaw moved through the crates, opening one after the other. What do you need down here, Legionnaire? First plan didn't work. Grimjaw scowled, pushing crates around. Well, the bomb we sent to the Nomad worked fine, but that scrit-sucking courier screwed it all up. Now we've got a new plan, and that means we need another bomb. He stuck his muzzle inside one of the boxes, sniffing its contents to detect what was inside. Blew up a whole damn ship and still missed the target. We're in for it if we don't come up with something else and quick. The meeting's this afternoon, and if that vote goes the wrong way, we could lose everything. Look, we did everything the boss wanted. What more can he ask? Croker complained. He asked us to do it right, and we chomped it, Croker. This guy may not be a tribune or even a char, but he's dead on dangerous. We screw this up again, and he just might toss a torch into our hold himself. The first mate groused. See, man, Grimjaw. This is ridiculous. Why can't we just seize the ships we want? If we commandeer them, we don't have to work with this human at all. Commandeer them with what crew? We had a hard enough time finding troops to sail the brutality. We're only 18 char, and we're promised 6 more ships. You think 3 char can crew a clipper? A galleon? How about the Pride do you think 3 lone char can sail that ship? That engine's the key to my promotion to the rank of tribune, and I'll do whatever I have to do to get it. Shut up and bite your tongue till this thing's over. We've got to have his help if we're going to attack or Tubface. Use your brain, Grimjaw groused, ripping another crate open to poke at the contents. Kobayas stiffened. His hand clenched the table leg as he willed himself to stay silent. He didn't think he could take the 2 char in a fight, but he was still willing to try. They wanted to steal his ship? What was this plan, and who were they working with? Aha, this'll do the trick. Grimjaw held up another bomb, this one made of gunpowder rods that the char used for deep mining. The captain rolled a length of fuse around his wrist and tucked the explosive into his vest. What are we going to do with that? Croker tilted his head as Grimjaw stomped back through the hold. An evil grin curled the char captain's muzzle. Grimjaw clapped his first mate on the shoulder as he headed back to the stairs. We're improvising, Croker, he said, gloating. The first bomb failed. But I'm going to go one better. I'm going to set this one where it can do us even more good. Where's that? Croker asked. Inside the captain's council. When all the captains are dead, he'll be able to take over the city. Then we'll get our ships. Good, huh? Kill the other captains? A slow dawn of comprehension rose over Croker's dull features. Hey, that's good. Then you'll be in control of the council. Right, you are. We'll make him king of Lion's Arch. I'll get the ships and crew we need to attack Or, and I'll have the Pride. The snaggletooth char laughed, low and dangerous. The first mate chuckled with him. Then we attack Or. Then we attack Or, right? Trust me. The boss is going to love this plan. Grimjaw's boots shook the boards of the staircase as he marched toward the brutality's upper deck. Come on. We've got to get to the pavilion and set this bomb before the others arrive. Croker followed, and the 2 char slammed the hatch behind them, locking it from the far side. Kobaya wriggled out from under the workbench. Those murderous sea sharks. He seethed. I've got to get back to the docks, and... As he made his way toward the porthole, the depth of the problem unfolded in his mind. Once Grimjaw knew the jig was up, he'd stop talking. The char had powerful friends, and whoever was behind this plan was willing to go to great lengths to make sure it worked. If he didn't handle this just right, he'd lose his only lead toward finding the real traitor. Kobaya slowed, bowing his head in frustration. As much as he wanted to rush after Grimjaw and attack, that wouldn't solve the problem. Kobaya squared his shoulders and looked out the porthole, watching as the far dock cast its morning shadow over the turquoise waves. King of Lion's Arch. Kobaya pondered the words. Whom had Grimjaw meant? Nodobi, probably, but it could have been anyone. By the mists, it might not even be a captain. Grimjaw's boss could be anyone with a vested interest in the council's vote. Kobaya's mind filled with scenarios, but with little time and few avenues of information. He kept coming back to the same thought. I have to let Grimjaw set the bomb. Kobaya pondered. He's not going to blow himself up. When Grimjaw finds an excuse to leave the council meeting, I'll see who goes with him. That's how I'll be able to tell whom he's working with. Kobaya gripped one of the crates angrily, closing his eyes at the thought. They'll be leaving the rest of us to die.